We'll see. I wasn't able to do practically anything with the internet earlier. Just WhatsApp was the only thing that worked. Guragraganya gana go chugulod haram Gauranga Gura Tamago Pirakolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami. So let's put this on the board here. This is why I like having video.
That's true.
If possible. Shri Krishna Namamrita Barshi Vaktra Chandra Prabha Dvastatamhobaraya Gauranga Devanucharaya Namo Namah Srila Narottamaya. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He's indeed a true follower of Lord Gauranga Dev. The nectarian shower of the holy name radiating from the moon of his mouth destroys the darkness of ignorance. So I'm sorry, last week we weren't able to have a session because we were taking part in the Bhakti Janani festival in Kazakhstan, which was an amazing festival. So nice to see so many friends from all over, from Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and from Russia and Ukraine, and like session we had. Please mute your phones. Prabhu, please mute yourself. This is last session, 2 weeks ago now. Anakatana baliba, anakatana suniba, sakali kohiba paramarta. Pratana koriba sada lalasa bistakata, ihabin. Anata. And not just talking about anakata, not believing. I'm not going to speak any other katas. I'm not going to hear any other katas. Anakata nasunivi sakale kahibe paramarta. I just want to hear about paramartic kata, about the absolute truth. Pratana koribe sada, and I'm always praying in this way, the lasa bishta kata, that I can always hear topics about Sakale Anartha. That's my only goal in my life. Ishvarira Tatvajata Tasha Ese Padane. So he said, I want to speak about this Ishvara Tattva, this topics about Krishna. Jata, I want to speak all about this topic. Tahabaka Hibakata. But how is it possible for me to do this? How much can I money on budget, but loving dealings in Braj, these topics, very sectarian, they're eternal topics, and affects my mind on these to be a proper listener obviously the Shakalanata, that I want to hear always these topics about Radha Krishna. Without that, if I don't have that thing, the lasa bishta, if I don't have this desire of my heart, iha bina shakale anartha, everything is just useless. Anartha literally means something which is useless. It's not our artha. It's not our goal. Just a useless thing. We want to hear talk. My Guru Maharaj told me, give me two primary instructions. One was to make his magazine, Krishna Katamrita, and the second was to give classes on Kata, speak things about Krishna. And who's interested in that? A few people here and there. We work for 2 weeks at a time on a magazine, and we have really amazing translations and stories and things devoted heard before in pictures, and there's 10 or 15 likes on it in Facebook. Picture of some lasagna that Krishna Kun made, and we got 2,000 likes for that. So, so it's difficult. People they're not interested in that kata. But what to do? This is what we've been given, and we have a humble service, so we're just trying the best that we can. But Narottam Das Thakur is saying here that in previous verse he's saying, I want to hear this Krishna Katha constantly. I don't want to hear anything else. I want to speak this constantly. I don't want to speak anything else. He says, but how can I speak this thing? Who can understand these topics? It's a very, very deep thing. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes that the 18th chapter of the Gita, idam te narapaskaya, nabhate kadachana nachashishishavevachana chamamyo abhisuyati, that don't speak this Bhagavad Gita. What? We're supposed to speak Bhagavad Gita always, right? He said, don't speak this Bhagavad Gita to someone who's a tapaskaya, who's not austere, nabhaktaya, who's not a devotee, ashushishavevacham, who's not doing any kind of service. Don't speak this topic to them, especially to someone who's a Vyasuyati, which means someone who's an envious person. You can't speak this to them. The Bhagavatam begins by speaking Dharma Projita Kaitava Trapadamo Nimatsaranam Satam. The same point being made that this Srimad Bhagavatam, it's only understood by persons who are Nimatsaranam, who are free from envy. Otherwise, they can't understand it. I've been reading a wonderful book recently. I'll show you the cover. And Ranjan Maharaj actually gave us this. It had just come out. It wasn't even in the bookstores yet. But Maharaj was distributing it to different devotees at his Vyas Puja program in Mayapur a few months ago. Is Hari Sari Prabhu's Transcendental Diary, Volume 6 of it. And I was reading this amazing story how Srila Prabhupada in the late December 1976 in Wardha, India, he was staying at the old residence of Jamnalal Bajaj. Jamnalal Bajaj is a person who started the Bajaj group of companies. For those of you who've been in India, Bajaj, you see the name Bajaj all over the place. It's a very famous thing. And there's a place there they call the Gita Pratishthan, and that was the main room. Gandhi stayed for so long. Prabhupada came, they invited him to go there. They were having what they call this Gandhi Ashram Sevagram, a meeting of all these different followers of Gandhi. And these are some of the leading, I don't want to say spiritual exactly, because let's say religious leaders of India, followers of Gandhi. And so very And there, and this whole meeting, much to the shock of those persons in the meeting, because they said, well, Swamiji, you're such a promoter of Bhagavad Gita. Why are you against spreading Bhagavad Gita all over India? What is this? And Prabhupada was telling them that Bhagavad Gita is meant for the Rajarsis. It's meant for the Rajas, meant for those saintly kings, and it cannot be understood by the general mass of people. And they were very disturbed by this. And no, Swamiji, we must. Prabhupada said, first of all, if you want to teach Bhagavad Gita, someone who's practicing Bhagavad Gita. So I was very shocked in some ways to hear this. I mean, doesn't it sound wonderful to have Bhagavad Gita in every school in the country and have people teaching it and speak? But Prabhupada was against it simply because they didn't understand the principle of who they're going to hear from. So we have to hear from a proper person. Otherwise, we can't understand. I'll give you an example. In the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, uh, chapter 90, in text number 41, it says, Tasya Kotya Sahasranam Asta Siddhi Satani Cha Asanyadu Kulacharyaha Kumaranam Iti Shrutam. That in Dwarka, the Yadu family had so many children that they were employing 38,800,000 teachers to educate them. And the next verse describes it, Lakshanaste sa ahukaha, that Maharaj Ugrasena had an entourage of 30 trillion attendants. That Ugrasena had 10 quadrillion soldiers as his personal bodyguards. So let's try to understand that. This is what Bhagavatam says, this is what Krishna book is saying. So who can understand it? Hari Chandra Prabhu, can you explain that to us? How Ugrasena Maharaj had 10 quadrillion bodyguards? No,
I
one
really didn't know.
quadrillion. One quadrillion is 1,000,000,000 millions. That's a one with 15 zeros following it. So the population of the planet today is estimated to be about 7 billion people. So in other words, according to Srila Prabhupada, Maharaj Ugrasena had more than 100,000 times more personal bodyguards than the entire population of the planet today. And aside from that, those are just the bodyguards who are not the main persons. They're also cooks and laborers and Brahmin priests and housewives and children and soldiers and the whole rest of a variegated population of Dwarka. So in Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur and his commentary in Bhagavatam 1090-42, he says, Trayatanam iti bahuvachanam. He says that the bahuvachana, or the plural, and the word ayutanam, kapinjala dikarna nyayena. It should be kapinjala. Whenever there's a plural, you it should be understood as null by 13 zero. So, which we call reconciliation. we're trying. I don't know what's going to happen here. Um, so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that the number of Krishna's cows, okay, so one with 15 zeros, that's 10 quadrillion. So you add two more zeros to that, 100 quadrillion, and that's the number of Krishna's cows in Vrindavan. That's 100 quadrillion cows. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that's just the young calves. Young, there weren't so many of the young calves, much more of the older cows. And Jiva Goswami comments in that verse that the boys and the calves of Vrindavan couldn't be counted. There are just so many. So how do we understand all this? And we can say that this is an exaggeration. We can say it's an allegory. It's not real. I mean, how, how are you going to fit 100,000 times more than the population of the entire planet today? That's just the bodyguards. And then we got teachers and cooks and gardeners and drivers and all kinds of other persons. And then the cows, oh my God, there's even so many more cows. And that's not counting the deer and all the other. So how do we understand it? So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives some answer in a different section of the Bhagavatam in chapter 12 of the 10th canto, text 3. He says, Natya soda sakrosi matrashi brindavanasya pradeshi tavanta vatsaha. He says that don't argue. Brindavan is 32 square miles of area. And so you've got over 100 quadrillion cows in this 32 square mile area of Vrindavan. How is it going to fit? And Vishwanath, he says that you should understand that even a tiny bit of this Dham, he says that Brahmandar Bunanam Bhagavataiva Brahmane Etat Udaradhyaye Darshaniyasyamanatvad Atta Evaktam Bhagavatamrite. He says that even a tiny spot of this Dham, even one grain of sand of Vrindavan, is sufficient. It has the energy of the Lord. It can accommodate billions, not thousands or hundreds, not millions, but billions of universes within each grain of sand. And each one of those universes measuring over 50 million miles in diameter. So Krishna showed that to Lord Brahma. So who can understand that? Who can speak this thing to us? This is not even about bhakti. Krishna says, Bhakti Mama Bhajanati Yavan Yash Chasmi Tatvata. What to speak of doing a census and trying to understand how many people live in Vrindavan, how many bodyguards Maharaj Ugrasena has. What to speak of that? It's much more difficult to understand me, and the only way to do that is by bhakti. So Narottam Das Thakur, in this verse today, in the previous verse, he's saying that, yes, I want to always speak this Krishna Katha. I want to always hear this Krishna Katha. But then he says, well, wait a minute, this is difficult. That how am I going to do this? I don't understand it. And we see even many devotees, they become discouraged and they say, well, I'm just a theoretical speaker. I can't really speak about this topic. What can I do? It's interesting to me that Srila Prabhupada translated Chaitanya Charitamrita, translated the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam in the form of Krishna book. Srila Prabhupada translated Upadeshamrita, which are all very, very elevated topics. All three of those books or section of the 10th canto were banned by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta during his time because he said the people were not qualified to hear the 10th canto or Chaitanya Charitamrita. They would have classes on Chaitanya Bhagavat. And he wrote a commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the devotees would distribute it. And of course, they were encouraged to read it, but they weren't having classes in public on it. But Srila Prabhupada did, and not only that, but Prabhupada was distributing those things. Now, there's a little clue that we can find in the fourth chapter of the Adi Leela. Let's see here. Show this on the board. Abhakta ustrera ite nahaya prabesha, tabichite hoya mora ananda bishesha. He says that the devote persons who are not devotees, they're just like camels. And they, nahoya prabesha, they can't enter into these topics. And because of that, tabi chitte hoya mora ananda bishesha, I'm feeling very happy. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Jai lagi kahite bhai, se jari na jani, ihavai kiba shuka achi tribhuvani. He said, I'm worried. How can I speak? I have this bhaya, this fear about them. But because say jari na jani, if they don't understand it, then what's the problem? So if you listen to the lectures that Srila Prabhupada gave, highly recommended, in the very early days in 26 Second Avenue, Srila Prabhupada was speaking so much about Srimati Radharani and about Vrindavan. And what could those devotees understand about it? I think it was Professor Hopkins, who was a professor of Indology. He understood, he was studying Indian philosophy and history. And one day, a very strange thing happened. There were no Vaishnavas that he knew of in America. One day, there was a knock on his door. He went and he answered the door. And there was this white guy with a dhoti on and a kurta, and he wanted to sell him a Srimad Bhagavatam. And he was amazed. Oh my God, this is a Gaudiya Vaishnava. You see the tilak. And invited him in, was speaking with him. And he was asking him questions. And he found this devotee didn't understand who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was. He had Gaudiya Vaishnava tilak on, selling Srimad Bhagavatams, but he didn't know who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was. And what to speak of different characters in the Bhagavatam and that. And so he was very curious, and he said, the devotee said, I don't understand, but you can meet our guru, Maharaj, Swami Prabhupada, and Swamiji, and Swamiji at that time. So he came to the temple, 26 Second Avenue, and he saw Srila Prabhupada. Then he could understand everything. So the devotees didn't have qualification for these subjects, but Prabhupada was speaking them. I remember a few years ago, we were in Budapest, and it was the first time I'd left India in a number of years. I've been used to giving classes to devotees, not to non-devotees, and they asked me to give a lecture at the Rath Yatra Festival downtown. I said, okay, fine. So we went there, and I'm always trying, because when you speak, it's an art. It's communication. You have to think about who you're speaking to, what they will relate to, what kind of language, what kind of mood. So I'm watching the whole dynamic there. And the first thing I notice is a gambling casino right next to the Rath Yatra cart. And most of the people coming out of the Rath Yatra were coming out of the casino. And I didn't see, there was very few devotees. And these people coming out of the casino, they had like hamburgers in their hand and alcoholic drinks, and they're smoking cigarettes. And some of them had their arms around girls who, let's just say, we hope that they were their wives. uh, what can I speak about in this group? So then I was watching the whole dynamic, and they started off with some kirtan. And after about, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes, the people just got up and walked away from the kirtan. And then they had some music with guitar and some things from kirtan like that. And they stayed for about maybe 10 minutes. And then there was some pretty girls doing yoga in tight clothes. And then they stayed for about 15 minutes. And they had a Odissi dancer. They liked that a little more. Maybe they stayed for 15, 20 minutes. And they'd given me 45 minutes to speak. And I was confused. What am I going to speak about? My Guru Maharaj, when he went to Hungary in 1995, he told the story about the first Rath Yatra. At the Rath Yatra festival, Sri Maharaj was translating for him on the stage. And Guru Maharaj told this story about how Krishna returned to Vrindavan and how Radharani was dying in separation from him. It's a very elevated, confidential story. And Guru Maharaj had told it. And I thought, that's what my Guru Maharaj did, so let me do the same thing. So I spoke that and I tried to coach it in a language that they could understand. I started off by being respectful to them and speaking how Hungary is a place of great art. And we're coming from a place of art called Utkal, which in Sanskrit means great art or Rissa. And this is a form of art called Harikatha, storytelling and singing and music. And we began speaking about, the first thing we said was the meaning of this festival is rescuing God from mechanical organized religion and bringing him to the village of our hearts. Krishna Kum was translating. And we told the story about three logs of wood and Krishna returning to Vrindavan and Radharani dying in separation from him, et cetera, et cetera. And in 45 minutes, no one left. Now, I don't think they could understand what I was saying. I really don't think they could understand. I'm quite sure. But I was very happy. And because I felt that although they don't understand, still they're entertained, they're attracted. This is something special. So like that, there's some benefit for them. And these topics, therefore, we speak these topics, but we have to hear them from Guru. If we don't hear these topics from Guru, then what are we going to understand of it? Just like people that they speak about Dharma Shastras and this and that. Srila Prabhupada, in one lecture in December 1975, he called them materialistic Dharma Shastras. So it's not that all Shastras are the same as other Shastras. Prabhupada, one time he said, you cannot approach Manasamhita, although he quoted Manasamhita also. He said, you cannot approach Manasamhita. According to Manasamhita, your Yavanas and Malechas. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes another place that Manasamhita has been interpolated so much. So how do we understand? Sometimes devotees, they quote Chanakya Pandit. But Chanakya Pandit, Prabhupada said in another conversation in 1970, said that Chanakya Pandit was not an authority in the spiritual sense. Prabhupada said he was a politician, a worldly man. But devotees sometimes quote him. So what do we want to quote? What's bona fide, what's not bona fide? A few weeks ago, we heard from Narottam Das Thakur here in Prema-bhakti-candrika. We sing at Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Kebala Bishara Bhanda. That the paths of Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda are just like pots of poison. And that's Narottam Das Thakur speaking about Shastra. So which Shastras do we take? Which Shastras do we not take? Prabhupada in Purport in Madhya Lila, chapter 5, Chaitanya Charitamrita, says that for a Vaishnav, the Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda sections of the Vedas are unnecessary. And indeed, Prabhupada says a real Vaishnav takes these sections as a poison pot, Bishara Banda. He's quoting this thing from Narottam Das Thakur. But at the same time, Prabhupada quotes those literatures sometimes. So how do we understand? It's not such an easy thing to understand who is Krishna. Prabhupada, in a conversation in Jagannath Puri on the 27th of January, 1977, Prabhupada was saying that big demigods, they don't have proper intelligence. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, only someone who's very fortunate can understand Kono Bhagavan. And he said in another place, Brahmara Durlabha Prema, even Lord Brahma cannot understand what is Krishna consciousness. So how am I supposed to understand? What am I supposed to do? Lochan Das Thakur in his song, famous song Nitai Gunamani Amar, he sings it, Dina Hina Pati Pama Nahi Bache, Brahmadula Bele Premi Sabakari Jache. He said that Nityananda Prabhu was freely giving this ecstatic prema, which is very difficult for Lord Brahma to attain. And he's giving that to fallen and wretched souls who weren't desirous even of attaining it. So we have to understand that this subject matter is inconceivable. Even if we talk about the census, India is getting ready to do another census study and find out how big the population is. If we do a census in the Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, how many people, there are 10 quadrillion bodyguards, 100 quadrillion cows, and more calves than that. You can't understand even the census. And what to speak, that's this mundane aspect, and what to speak of the spiritual aspect. And as we commented, according to Vishwanath and other acharyas, uh, it's because the Vrindavan is transcendental, and even one grain of sand contains hundreds of millions of different universes within it. So it's inconceivable. So if we want to understand Shastra, if we want to understand, we have to render service. Therefore, Jiva Goswami in Priti Sandarbha, he says, Sevanam Chittanubriti, that if you want to do service to someone, you have to try to understand their mind. Otherwise, you can't do service. But how do we understand the mind of a personality, of a transcendental person? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in one of his Sarita Darshini commentaries in the third canto of Bhagavatam, he explains that uh, the disciple should be anubhav, or following the mood, anugatya, of Gurudev. He said, but how do you understand what is the mood? And he gives an example of a wealthy man. Some of you may have heard me use this example before. I like it very much. If you go to a wealthy man, like Bill Gates is a very wealthy man, you go to him and you say, Sir, how much money do you have? He's not going to tell you. But Vishwanath says, if you look to see how many houses does he have? What are the houses like? How many vehicles does he have? How many servants does he have? How do the servants dress? From those things, you can understand something about the wealth of that person. And so similarly, when we associate with sadhu guru and we're doing rendering service to them, we don't know what is their mood and we can't speculate, but we can see something of what they have, what they like to do. Those devotees who had the good fortune, like Mother Anavadyangi, to associate directly with Srila Prabhupada, they saw every day Prabhupada was speaking Krishna Katha. Every day Prabhupada was getting up in the middle of the night after sleeping for 2 hours and translating Srimad Bhagavatam. This is what Prabhupada couldn't live without, because Krishna Katha. So when we serve, when we come in contact with it, then we see this is the thing that he's very, very attached to. I'd like to share with you an article called Thakur Bhakti Vinod, which is originally published in The Harmonist in December of 1931. We reprinted this. Originally, it was called Thakur Bhakti Vinod. We gave a new name for it when we printed it in both the Party Prashna and in our Bindu magazine. We called it Understanding the Writings of Thakur Bhakti Vinod. It's an article by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. And he was speaking about how to understand. That's our topic today, how to understand this subject matter. And he's saying that these are the anniversary celebration of the advent of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He's given us so many things. And he says that that day is not far distant when the priceless volumes penned by Thakur Bhaktivinoda will be reverently translated by the recipients of his grace into all the languages of the world. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was pretty what happened with us. And he speaks about the glories of those writings, which are like, he calls them a golden bridge, by which the mental speculators can safely cross over the raging waters of fruitless empiric controversies. And then he goes on to explain a very deep point. As soon as the sympathetic reader is in a position to appreciate the sterling quality of Thakur Bhaktivinoda's philosophy, the entire vista of the revealed literatures of the world will automatically open out to his reclaimed vision. Very
mm,
good. There have, however, already arisen serious misunderstandings regarding the proper interpretation of the life and teachings of Srila Thakur Bhaktivinoda. Well, what are those serious misunderstandings? He says, those who suppose they understand the meaning of his message without securing the guiding grace of the Acharya are disposed to unduly favor the methods of empiric study of his writings. Who?
mm,
He says you have some people, they think they understand just by reading a book. In Bhaktisiddhanta goes on, there are persons who have gotten by heart almost everything that he wrote without being able to catch the least particle of his meaning.
mm,
They've memorized maybe everything that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote, but they can't understand what it means. And he says such study cannot benefit those who are not prepared to act according to the instructions conveyed by his words. And he says there's no honest chance of missing the warnings of Bhaktivinoda. Those, therefore, who are misled by the perusal of his writings, by reading through his books, are led astray by their own, he calls it, obstinate perversity, and
mm,
sticking to the empiric course, which they prefer to cherish against his explicit warnings. In other words, they're so attached. I'm going to read this book. And I see this thing. Anavajangi, I've seen this thing. When Anavajangi joined, devotees were going out in Harinam for 8, 10 hours a day, every day. And there weren't big pundits. Devotees didn't know so many things. Jayananda Prabhu, we tell stories about him. My God, his pronunciation of Sanskrit, Prabhupada just laughed when Jayananda
mm,
asked him, he said, I'm pronouncing the Gayatri mantra right. Prabhupada said, how do you pronounce it? Jayananda spoke some of the words and Prabhupada just started laughing. He said, anyway, chant Hare Krishna. He was the first saint in
mm,
our movement. And Prabhupada had us put his disappearance day on our calendars.
mhm,
But he wasn't a big pundit. But now I see so many big, big devotees. They go to Loy Bazaar in Vrindavan and the bookstores and they purchase Govinda Lilamrita and this commentary and that commentary. And then they try to act like because they know something, they're big, big persons. But Bhaktisiddhanta is saying here that if you try to read the writings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you approach his teachings in this way, with your obstinate perversity to sticking to the empiric course and just trying to empirically understand what he wrote. Uh, he says that they're led astray. And he says the personal service of the pure devotee is essential for understanding the spiritual meaning of the words of Thakur Bhaktivinoda. Gorkashodas Babaji wasn't quoting Ujjwal Nilamani and Govinda Lilamrita and so many different books and things. He couldn't read Sanskrit. He was able to read Bengali. His favorite books were Prema-bhakti-candrika and Prarthana of Narottam Das Thakur. But he couldn't read Sanskrit. So someone may think, well, I know more than Gorkashodas Babaji. I'm more
mhm,
advanced than Gorkashodas Babaji because I know so many things that he didn't. He's a second-class person. It's cheap.
mm,
Cheap thing. Instead
mm,
of surrendering to the spiritual master, doing what Srila Prabhupada wanted, and this is why we love those disciples of Prabhupada who are going out day after day on the streets, and you don't know, devotees, what it was like in those days. We can read about it. I got a tiny bit of a taste of it in the early 80s. When people throw eggs at us and try to beat you. I was attacked a few times and that. And in the 70s, there were bullet holes in the Denver temple. Recently, they had just a few years ago, he had someone driving by the temple in Salt Lake City, excuse me, Spanish Fork, Utah, and shooting guns at the temple. There were so many terrible things happening with the devotees, but they didn't care. They were just taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada. And they weren't big pundits. They couldn't pronounce Sanskrit. They couldn't read this or that. But they were serving Srila Prabhupada. And they could understand. Whereas the big scholars, some of whom were studying Sanskrit and the Bhagavatam and Vedic literatures, they couldn't understand it all. And therefore, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Shiva tells Parvati, Aham Vedmi Sukha Vedi, Vyasa Vedi Navedi, Bhakti Bhagavatam Grayam Nabudya Nachitikaya, that he said, I understand Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Shiva understands, Shukadev Goswami understands because he heard it from me and Bhubaneswar. It's a long story, which we tell sometimes. But Vyasa Vedi Navediva, whether Vyasadeva understands or not, I don't know. But Bhakti Bhagavatam Grayam Nabudya Nachatika, the only way to understand Srimad Bhagavatam is by bhakti. Not buddhya, not by your intelligence, not chatikaya, not even by taking help of the commentaries. My father, when I joined the Hare Krishna movement, he purchased a copy of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, and he read through it, and he marked it all up. But his purpose wasn't to understand the Bhagavad Gita. His purpose was to find faults and to try to take away his son from what he saw was a cult or something. And he couldn't understand Bhagavad Gita at all. He studied it. And some of their people, as Bhaktisiddhanta is saying here, who memorized the writings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but they can't understand it. So Prabhupada says, the present editor has all along felt that his paramount duty to try to clear up the meaning of the life and teachings of Thakur Bhaktivinoda by the method of submissive listening to the transcendental sound from the lips of the pure devotee. The guru who realizes the transcendental meaning of all sounds is in a position to serve the absolute by the direction of the absolute conveyed through every sound. So someone who's realized that person can serve Krishna. The transcendental sound is Godhead. The mundane sound is non-Godhead. All sound has got these opposite aptitudes. All sound reveals its divine face to the devotee and only presents its deluding aspect to the empiric pedant. So the empiric pedant, that's the empirical person who's trying to study the Bhagavatam. They're just going to become deluded. And therefore, Nautam Das Thakur is saying in verse 8, in the previous verse, I want to always speak Krishna Katha, I want to always hear Krishna Katha. But now he's saying, but how can I do that? Well, the answer is we just repeat what we've heard, and we can't understand it. My Guru Maharaj called that the kirtan of the disciple. And he said the function of Sadguru is to speak Krishna Katha. And the function of the disciple is to hear. And after the Guru speaks, then he tells the disciple, now you speak, you repeat. And as my Guru Maharaj once told me, he said, you just repeat what you've heard from your Guru and the previous acharyas. And he jammed me in the chest and said, don't think it belongs to you. So we just repeat. That's our only qualification. My Guru Maharaj said that kirtan of the disciple is another name for shravan, another name for hearing. We're not qualified for this subject matter. We've not realized it. But we just repeat what we've heard. I'm going to jump a little bit ahead. He says, those who repeat the teachings of Thakur Bhaktivinoda from memory do not necessarily understand the meaning of the words they mechanically repeat. Those who can pass an empiric examination regarding the contents of his writings are not necessarily self-realized souls. So again, going back to that story in Warda, with Srila Prabhupada telling the followers of Gandhi that it's a waste of time to distribute Bhagavad Gita in all the schools and have Bhagavad Gita classes for all the students. It's a shocking comment. Prabhupada said it's a waste of time unless you have proper teachers. So Prabhupada wanted his disciples to distribute his books, and he wanted the disciples to read the books. that person is a teacher of the Bhagavad Gita. If they're practicing, they can teach the Bhagavad Gita. So, Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta says, they may not at all know the real meaning of the words they have learned by the method of empiric study. Lakshmi Moni Mataji, our dear friend, she's teaching Bhakti Shastri for some time in Vrindavan, and she became frustrated. She said, now there's a new uh, type of students who are coming who are not interested in really learning the Gita, the Bhagavatam, but that they're expert students. And they've learned how to get good grades, how to memorize things for tests and that, but they haven't really understood the subject matter. So still we do that. Srila Prabhupada wanted Bhakti Shastri tests to be given, courses to be given, because it'll be helpful. And if the teacher is a good teacher, Krishna Kun was one of the students under Lakshmi Muni, and to this day she talks about how it changed her life to hear from her. And she got a good grade, but the point wasn't the grade that she got. The point was that the hearing that she gotten from this elevated devotee. So without approaching sadhu guru in a proper way, we can't understand. And there's so many, I'll say a few more things in the same article from Bhaktisiddhanta. It's a really very sweet article. He says, well, let's see, maybe I'll go back up to this. He said, the devotee is always right. The non-devotee in the shape of the empiric pedant is always unnecessarily wrong. In the one case is always present a substantive truth and nothing but the real truth. In the other case, there's the apparent or misleading hypothesis and nothing but untruth. The wording may have the same external appearance in both cases. The external verses of the scripture recited by the devotee and non-devotee may be apparently misquoted by the devotee. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada, if you listen to his lectures, he quotes a verse and he gives some wrong words in the Sanskrit. It's misquoted. He says, but the corresponding values of the two processes remain always categorically different. The devotee is right even when he apparently misquotes, and the non-devotee is wrong even when he quotes correctly the very words, chapter, and verse of the scriptures. Because it's not just a matter of information collection and dissemination. It's a matter of understanding. And then he goes on, it's not empiric wisdom that is the object of quest of the devotee. Those who read the scriptures for gathering empiric wisdom will be pursuing a wild goose chase. There are not a few dupes of their empiric scriptural erudition. These dupes means these foolish persons, these dupes have their admiring under dupes, but the mutual admiration society of dupes does not escape by the mere weight of their number the misfortunes due to deliberate pursuit of the wrong course in accordance with the suggestions of our lower selves. So Srila Prabhupada didn't appreciate their suggestion of teaching Bhagavad Gita in the schools. He said, where is the proper teachers? You have to have devotees. You have to have guru. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada didn't appreciate education. And he spoke very harshly in Scottish Churches College. But Prabhupada saw that they're not teaching to understand something about Vigyan. It's all about Gyan. It's all about some information collection. You pass a test and then you're considered expert and you go out. But they don't understand the real process of real activity and they don't understand the absolute truth. Therefore, Prabhupada wanted real teachers. He wanted devotees who would go out and persons who were practicing devotees, he wanted them to speak about Bhagavad Gita to others. In the beginning of, I'm going to go to something else. There's a beautiful verse in I like very much in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, which is spoken by Maitreya Muni. And he speaks about this principle, about what we can speak on. Tatapikiti yam yanga yata mata yata shrutam kirte hare swam sakkartum giram amyabidasatim. He says, I am not qualified. Narthadas Thakur is saying, I'm not qualified to speak this information. But whatever I've heard from my guru, and not just whatever I've heard from my guru, I know my Siksha guru, Fakir Mohan Prabhu, I heard from him for over 10 years. And oh my God, it was so many commentaries and this thing and that thing. And what did I collect? Very, very little. I was trying at one point to make recordings, and he stopped. He stopped me. No, no, no recording. So, okay, so I was taking notes on what he was saying. What are you doing? I'm taking notes. I want to collect this information. No, and he wouldn't let me do that. So I'm an intelligent Westerner. I'm from America. So I took a very small tape recorder, put it inside my bead bag, and the next morning I went to class, turned on the tape recorder, and put the bead bag on top of a little stand. And the devotee sitting next to me, rather loudly, unfortunately, said, "What are you tape recording for?" And Fakir Mahmood, "Hey, what are you doing? Stop that." And then I noticed later on he was allowing other people to record. It's not fair. Why wouldn't he let me record? So Maitreya Muni says here, it's not just what I've heard, but whatever I could digest, whatever I could assimilate. I heard of one leading sadhu in Vrindavan, and someone was putting a tape recorder in front of them to record what they were saying. And that sadhu told them, he said, don't think you can capture me inside your little box.
Uh-huh.
Srila Prabhupada, several times, he said that you can play a recording and it seems like I'm there, but I'm not. Now, of course, Srila Prabhupada is present in his recordings, in his books, but Prabhupada said several times, we can read, I can send these, we compiled a whole, many different quotes from Srila Prabhupada about this. It's a very subtle point. Prabhupada said, it appears that I'm there, but I'm not. What is it? It's a mechanical, they had this magnetic tape originally with recordings, and it makes some sound which imitates. When they first started making record players, there was an advertisement that had a picture of a dog. Anavajangi, you must have seen this. I remember this. There was a
RCA.
dog. Yeah, listening to, and it said, the caption said his master's voice. And the dog
Uh-huh.
was looking confused. Is my master inside this box here with the thing? The master's not there. It's an imitation. Now, in the case of Srila Prabhupada, those words are non-different from him, and there's some benefit from, but who can understand it? And therefore, uh, Maitreya Muni, he says that yata mata yata shrutam. I'm going to speak as much as I've been able to digest, as much as I've understood from my guru. Because if I don't understand it properly, then I'm going to have problems. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta told a story of a man in West Bengal who was impressed with the Bideshis, the Westerners, so he started to learn English. And he's very proud. He learned 3 words, yes, no, 4 words, yes, no, very good. And so one day there was a murder, and some of the police came to him and they were looking. They said, did you do this thing? And he thought, well, I'm really in big trouble. He didn't do the murder, but he wanted to impress him. He's an educated person. So he just repeated these words without understanding what they mean. He said, yes. And they said, well, did anybody else help you? And he said, well, I better go on to my next English word, no. He said, no. And they said, well, we're going to take you to jail forever. And then, wow, this is really dangerous. I better really use my strength of English language. He said, very good. So what's the value of just mimicking something? I spent so much time in Hungary, and I can't even say the name of the village next to New Brajadam. It's so bad. I'm such a bad man. I can mimic a few things, And maybe it makes some people laugh. That's about the value of it. So bhakti is another thing. We want to understand, and that understanding comes from Guru. Agyan Timirandasya, Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshramalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. We have this pranam mantra to Gurudev because I'm in the darkness of ignorance. I can't understand. I have no knowledge, but Gurudev has come and given me this transcendental knowledge, which Srila Prabhupada, interestingly, there's a conversation, I often cite this, maybe some of you heard me. When he was in Germany, the devotees introduced him to a Buddhist monk. And he was a very learned person. I think he was also a professor or something. And he was speaking to Srila Prabhupada about how it's not enough just to read the books, but people have to have a understanding. In other words, speaking like Gyan's not enough, but we need Vigyan, we need realization. And interestingly, there, Srila Prabhupada disagreed with him. Seemingly the opposite of what happened in Warda with the Bhagavad Gita discussion. Prabhupada said, no, the books must be there. And just by reading the books, they'll get something. Because this knowledge is not an ordinary knowledge. And what is the difference between these two anecdotes in Warda, where Prabhupada was against them teaching Bhagavad Gita in the schools, and then him speaking in Germany with this professor, and Prabhupada discouraging his comments about how it should be realized. And Prabhupada was stressing knowledge. Prabhupada realized that people need this information. It needs to be coming from the right source. And if that's happening, then that knowledge, it may be theoretical knowledge, is very, very useful. And in our case, it may be theoretical that we're speaking, but still, if we keep speaking it, after some time, Leela Purushottam always likes us telling a story about the man who was sick and the doctor couldn't digest anything, and the doctor told him to take ghee. And just by taking that ghee, they explained it would line the stomach. And so other things then could stay in the stomach and he could digest it. So that's required. Therefore, every morning we sing Chakudan Dilo Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se Dibhigyan Hridi Prokasito. That Gurudev is that person who's given us Chakudan Dilo. He's given us this transcendental vision. And therefore, he's my Lord, birth after birth. Dibya Gyan Hridi Prokasito. He's given Dibya Gyan in the heart. Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoiti Avidya Vinasi. It's that Prema Bhakti which destroys avidya or ignorance. Vedigai Jahada Chadita. And the Vedic literatures, they sing about his character. So I want to finish with a lecture Srila Prabhupada gave in Bombay at the time, in 1973. Now, this is something that we printed in Pari Prashna, the process of inquiry. I'll go ahead and post this on the board here. Let's see. One cannot become a devotee by one's personal endeavor. Just like some rascals say, what is the use of accepting a guru? And then Prabhupada said, such a brilliant thing. Of course, they've got very bad experience. Whoa, isn't that's like the story of the last few decades in ISKCON. So many people saying, what's the use of being a guru? Because they've got a very bad experience. But Prabhupada says they're rascals. Prabhupada says, who is Acharya? Acharya means one who's received Vedic knowledge through the parampara system. Ivam parampara praptam imam rajarsayo viduhu. He's Acharya. And Acharya cannot be manufactured or self-made. He must come into succession. One who's under the shelter of an Acharya, he knows things. Krishna recommends that if you actually want to have real knowledge, then you must worship the Acharya, Acharya Upasanam. This is a Vedic system. Tad vigyanartam sa gurum ivabhigachet. It's not that if I like, I can go to a guru. And if I don't like, I'll study the books at home and learn everything. No, Prabhupada said, that's not possible. I'll read that again. If it's not that if I like, I can go to a guru. And if I don't like, then I can study the books at home and learn everything. No, that's not possible. It's practical. Just like if you purchase a medical book, study at home, and then begin to practice, you'll be called a quack. Quack is the
Mm-hmm.
sound of the duck. The government will not recognize you. You will not get the practitioner's registration unless you pass to the medical college and had your medical examination. You'll not be accepted. Even if you say, I've read all the books. Similarly, someone may say, I've read Bhagavad Gita 100 times. But if you ask him what is Krishna, he cannot say because he's not approached the Acharya. That's the difficulty. He might have read Bhagavad Gita 1,000 times, but he will not understand a single word because he's not approached. Therefore, Vedic literature said, Tadvikanartam sagarum ivabhigachet. Abhigachet. The word is used with the sense is you must. And probably becomes a little technical. He doesn't usually become so technical. Sanskrit says, it is a vidalant form of the verb. You must. There's no excuse. You cannot learn. You must approach Guru. There's no other way. So this is our process. This is what Narottam Das Thakur is saying, that I can't understand it on my own. We may think I understand it, but I don't have the ability to do so. Devaki Nandan Das, in the end of his Vaishnav Sarna, beautiful song, which is encouraged the devotees to recite every day. My Guru Maharaj liked this song very, very much. Devakinandan Das was in the line of Purushottam Das Thakur, associate of Lord Nityananda. Vandana korite mui kata shakti dhari tamo buddhi doshe mui dhamba matra kori. He said, I have no ability to glorify the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Tamo buddhi doshe mui dhamba matra kori. But I'm a very proud person, a damba. I'm the dumbi. And it's just out of ignorance and pride. So I'm trying to do this thing. He said, but even though tatapi mukera bhagya manira ulas, even though I don't have the ability to glorify them, still manira ulas, I'm feeling so happy to glorify the Vaishnavas. So dosha kami moadami koro nija das. Please, my dear Vaishnavas, dosha kami, forgive me for my faults. Please overlook them and make me your servant. Manira basana purna achagati hoy, devaki nandana das elo bekoi. He says, I have this greed that I want to serve the Vaishnavas. I want to speak about the Vaishnavas. I want to glorify the Vaishnavas. And Devaki Nandan Das, he says, he writes this song in this spirit. So this is the same mood that Narottam Das Thakur is saying. In the previous verse, he's saying, Anakata na baliba, anakata na shuniba, sakale kohibi paramat. I always want to speak Krishna Katha. I always want to hear Krishna Katha. This is the goal of my life. And then he stops for a moment. He says, wait a minute. And he has today's verse. Let's look at this again and we'll go ahead and finish. Ishvarera tattva jata taha ba kahiba kata ananta apara keba jani brajapura prema nitya se parama satya bhaja bhaja anuragamani. How much can I explain the topics of the Supreme Lord? And who will understand it? But Brajapura Prema Nitya, it's so nectarian. I can't stop. My grandmother sometimes in classes, he would say that you're not qualified to hear this, but I have to speak this. What can I do? He said, I don't have any qualified students, but I have to speak this thing. Bhaja Bhaja Anuragamani. My dear mind, my dear mana, please have some anurag, some attachment to this subject matter. Such a very, very important topic. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Maybe devotees have some comments, questions, or maybe corrections. Or something. Anybody have anything? Gornitai Prabhu wrote some comments. Let me just read those before we go further on. Gornitai said, how is a personal mood kept? That is another question. Like how many disciples can have a personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada? They could live far from Srila Prabhupada. Still, they could have a personal relationship. The same way Ugrasena Maharaj could have bodyguards wherever he visited in his life once. Those guards could remain his guards and children remain his children living far from Dwarka. Yeah, perhaps that's one way to look at it. It's not exactly. Prabhupada said that they're actually they were there. They were present there. And as far as how many disciples can Srila Prabhupada have, Prabhupada spoke about this subject matter many times. We want to have personal association with Guru. Of course. I like very much. I've been relishing hearing some different memories of Srila Prabhupada today. I like so much to hear that. And when I hear about these memories of Prabhupada, I especially like to hear personally from Brahmananda, from Jamuna, from devotees who had lots of association with Prabhupada. And so that physical association is also wanted. And Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha says it's also needed. It's not just that we only want to hear from Gurudev. We want to hear from him. But just as if Gurudev shows up and he's come from a long distance, a long travel, and the disciple greets him and says, Gurudev, I know I know you're not your body, and I know you're detached from your body. So I've arranged for a nice guitar right now. Never mind you taking a bath, never mind you resting, never mind you having some prasadam. You should just speak because that's you're not your body. That's the topmost thing. When we want to serve Gurudev, we want to serve him by cooking. We want to serve that body. And Jiva Goswami speaks about the Prasanga Seva and how important that is. And there's also the Vani Seva, which in the absence of the form of Guru, that's our everything. But both things are required. Both things are wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Um, Anybody else with any comments, questions? Orsi, do you have something?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Should I speak now? I don't know. I'm okay. Okay. So thank you very much. I'm just after the comment of Gornitai Prabhu and what you answered that actually all of these bodyguards were there, and this is very important point because in this case I don't understand at all that how is it possible to maintain the intimacy of those leelas because I so if there are too much person, it's just from the perspective of Krishna. How can it be? So everyone like you are always in a crowd. How can the intimacy can be maintained?
Therefore,
It's a
I think this is one of the main reasons why the seventh canto of the Bhagavatam and also our acharyas like Bhaktivinoda and Chaitanya Siksamrita and Rupa Goswami and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and other different acharyas say that one should not accept too many disciples, not just because it's a burden for that particular person. Srila Prabhupada accepted, I think, around 2,000 disciples, but because we want to spend time, we want to have intimacy, we want to go very deep in this process. And there's so many people, it becomes a little painful. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as we oftentimes comment, was doing Rath Yatra with hundreds of thousands of people, but he would go back to the Gambhira with just Swarup Damodar and Roy Ramananda in very intimate Sangha. Both things are required. We want to give Krishna consciousness to everyone, but we also need intimacy by our nature and by the nature of bhakti, it's required. It's needed. Is that helpful, Orsi?
so in my understanding is correct that in the case of the Leelas of Krishna, like in the case of the cows or the gopis, there are many, many of them. And so sometimes they are experiencing this crowd actually, which there is if we are talking about quadra, I don't know how much million, I just cannot express that numbers. And sometimes they just withdrawing and they are few of them. Oh, I see in this way. And I also wanted to note that,
Let me just comment on that real quick.
okay,
Our acharyas say different things about this. Sometimes they say about Ras Leela. There's 16,108 gopis in the Ras Leela, and each one of them felt that Krishna was beside her alone and was paying attention to her alone. And there's many descriptions like that also with the cowherd boys. there's hundreds and trillions of cowherd boys, but each boy feels that Krishna's with him alone. When Krishna revived the cowherd boys after they drank the poisoned water of the Jamuna, which became toxic by the poison of Kaliya, Krishna woke one of them up at a time, and there was an intimate exchange with each one of them. So Vrindavan means that place of intimacy, but how does that work? Some say that Krishna expands himself. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says no. Krishna does not expand himself in Vrindavan, but he moves so fast that the gopis, each gopi thinks that Krishna is really with me. In Dwarka, he expands himself, but in Braj, he's moving so quickly. So anyway, however he does it, the point is that Krishna's there. The devotees feel that he's intimate with each one of them. You wanted to go on with something else?
Yes, but just a note regarding this, what you were talking about, that it's. I was also thinking about this, that the gopis feel that Krishna is also only with them, uh, and uh, and I was thinking that okay, but is it? I would say that definitely they are aware that there are other gopis as well. Maybe like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he had sometimes an inner consciousness and outer. So at least there is some shift in their consciousness, because otherwise, why the common experience? And so is it good in like this understanding that they parallel are able to experience both that Krishna is only with them and that they are in a group.
Vrindavan Dham is Madhurja Moyi Dham. It's a place of great sweetness. And Gyan there just doesn't work the same. But it doesn't mean that those devotees in Braj are ignorant. There's some expression that's not coming to my mind. They're just some ignorant Okies or something. We might say in America, Okie means someone really from Oklahoma who's not an educated person. They're just some person from the small village in a distant place, not educated kind of person. Doesn't mean that the Brijbasis are like that. They also have knowledge, but the nature of that sweetness is it overcomes the knowledge. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that sometimes it comes up and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they realize, oh, Krishna, you're Bhagavan, you're God. And then other times they hear, no, Krishna's not God. How can you say that? Nanda Maharaj says he puts my shoes on his head. How can he be God? He's not God.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted a note. I realized it was very eye-opening, let's say, for me, because when you were talking about Srila Prabhupada, how he was disagreed to distribute Bhagavad Gita in every school, because I had, as a scholar, I mean, I had that part that I do researches, and I remember one point I wanted to suggest as a legal social reform to teach the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm just laughing now that, oh, how silly I am actually, that it doesn't work in that way. It definitely needs to learn from the right source, even they are not realized, but following the footsteps of the acharyas. So now it's very helpful, because now I'm a little bit smarter.
That's good.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Very good comment.
Okay, Krishna Kwan wants to make some comment.
When Srila Prabhupada
Speak loudly. Can you hear
me? When it was suggested to Srila Prabhupada that devotees distribute books through some company who is so expert in selling, Srila Prabhupada said, no, it has to be done by my disciples. It's the same principle.
Yeah. Although Naranjan Maharaj got his first Bhagavad Gita in a non-devotee bookstore.
But that was put there.
Put there by devotee.
Yeah.
But the devotees also could put their Prabhupada's books in a company with the same token, that too. Okay, thank you, Arsi. Hi, Krishna. Let's see here. Dear Raj Prabhu comments. Let me scroll down here. Okay. Prabhupada said, you cannot imagine what my spiritual master said. Or even if you read some books, you cannot understand unless you understand it from me. This is called Parampara system. You cannot jump over to the superior guru. I mean to say, neglecting the next acharya, immediate next acharya. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati makes a similar point also, that with Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writings, he said, you can't understand them because you're not approaching the acharya. You're not approaching it, and the acharya doesn't necessarily mean one particular person who's the most important like that, but you're not approaching acharya as someone whose teaching is understood by their behavior. You have to approach that. So he's a question, what should be the proper mood before going to the writings of the previous acharyas? I know for myself, I asked my Guru Maharaj, I said, Guru Maharaj, should I read? He said, you must read. You must do that. And he gave me, I was asking so many different books. Said, yes, you should read, you should read. He gave me that personal instruction. But I also see that with some other devotees, it was quite the opposite. And he refused them. He said, no, you should not read those books. You shouldn't, you just be very simple. So it depends upon the person. Guru Maharaj gave different instructions to different persons. That's why Guru is present there. But in general, Srila Prabhupada, he said that one must read the works of the previous acharyas. In Madhya Lila chapter 25, I think it is, in one purport, he says that false devotees, he uses that expression, false devotees, think that reading the works of the previous acharyas is unadvisable. One time in Australia, they asked Srila Prabhupada, they said, Prabhupada, we heard that you didn't want devotees to read the books of the previous acharyas. And Prabhupada said, what? Who said that? I never said that. You must read the books of the previous acharyas. So in this comment from December 8, 1973, we should also try to understand who Prabhupada was speaking to and what was the context, because Prabhupada had the devotees publish the Brahma Samhita with a commentary of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And Prabhupada wrote one letter also to the editors of Back to Godhead magazine. He said that articles written by my Guru Maharaj can be published without hesitation. But the point still is that we need to have someone who's guiding us. Otherwise, if you have, and just take an example of mundane knowledge, you have a second grade student who picks up his brothers, older brothers in the university, and his brother's studying quantum mechanics or something. And the younger brother is trying to understand 2 + 2 = 4. And he picks up his older brother's book and it says E equals MC and a little 2. This is complete nonsense. This doesn't mean anything. He can't understand it. And even if he tries to read it, it'll just go right over his head. So an expert teacher, even in mundane topics, tells a student, before you want to study quantum mechanics, you have to understand arithmetic and multiplication and division and algebra and geometry and all these other basic things as a foundation. Then you can go on to quantum mechanics. So we need a person to guide us. That's guru. I'll just say that much. Yeah, is that helpful, dear Raj Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much. Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Gauni Thakur was written, what quality does one need to experience the mood and experience of his spiritual master? Well, first of all, in the first Vilas of Hari Bhakti Vilas, which speaks about guru and disciple, Srila Sanatana Goswami says that Advaitam cha parityayat, that we should give up the attitude that I'm non-different from my Gurudev. In other words, Gurudev is not my possession. In other words, Gurudev may be understood by many different people in many different ways. And I don't have the adhikar personally to make public statements, this person is bona fide and this other person is not bona fide. I may make a personal statement by who I choose to associate with and who I choose not to associate with. I may chastise and disagree with philosophy, but persons I don't know. Even if someone is coming and saying Sarvam Kal Vidam Brahma, everything is Brahman, I'm not going to argue with that person if he's Mahadev Shiva who's come as Shankaracharya. But I don't agree with that philosophy. I'll speak about the philosophy and not the person. That's a very important thing. Yeah, thank you, Dhiraj Prabhu. False devotees think that studying books of the previous acharyas is unadvisable, like studying dry empiric philosophies. So if we want to understand the mood and experience of our guru, one of the first things required is that we should recognize that he's a person. And as a person, he's going to have different relationships with different people. And Srila Prabhupada had so many different relationships with different devotees. I'm trying to remember the name of his disciple, passed away a few years ago. Someone who's very affectionate to me. His name's not coming to my mind. It's been many years since I've seen him. I knew him in Los Angeles. Maybe it's been the tip of my tongue. Anyway, everybody, mostly devotees, are very reverential towards Srila Prabhupada. But one day Prabhupada was giving a darshan, and this devotee, whose name is slipping my mind, walked into the darshan and saw the latest volume of Srimad Bhagavatam just come from the press. Nobody had it. Only Prabhupada had it. And he said, wow, Prabhupada, could I have that? And Prabhupada just gave it to him. Prabhupada had very affectionate relationships sometimes with the children, and we can't imitate that. Sometimes we want to be very, very close to Gurudev. We want to have some very intimate relationship. But you can't imitate relationships. They're personal, they're natural. And maybe we're feeling some awe and reverence toward Guru, and we're feeling nervous around him and things. So that's where we're at. That's okay. Better to be like that than to see some, oh, I see this devotee over here. He's reaching on Gurudev's plate and taking some prasadam off the plate and eating it himself. So I can also do like that too. He's joking with Gurudev and speaking in such a way. We all have personal relationships. And those relationships, like bhakti, which is sabhaviki, bhakti is natural. Those relationships are natural. Bhakti means those relationships. So what kind of quality do we need to have to experience the mood and experience of our Gurudev? We have to please him. Shushu Shoshudadana Shavasudeva Katalachi Shanmahat Sevaya Vipa Punyatirtana Sevana. We do that service, and we do service for the pleasure of Gurudev. We do service trying to understand Sevanam Chittanubritti, as Jiva Goswami says in Priti Sandarbha. To do seva means I have to understand the chitta, the mood of that person. So that's only going to be something that's going to be revealed to me. And paradoxically, what's revealed to me sometimes may be very different from someone else. Sometimes Prabhupada told one devotee, he said, why are you reading Ramcharit Manas? That book has Mayavad. You shouldn't do that. Other times Prabhupada gave a class on the book. And one time Prabhupada said that Ramcharit Manas is the most important book in the Hindi language. It's not in Hindi, actually, it's in, I forget the name of the language, it's a sub-dialect of Hindi. And Prabhupada said that Tulsidas is a pure Vaishnava other times. It depends on who you're speaking to. And to that devotee in 1968 in America who was reading an English translation of Ramcharit Manas, which is most likely translated by an impersonalist, Prabhupada said there's some Mayavad philosophy there. But at the end of the book, the conclusion of the book is smashing Mayavad philosophy heavily in Ramcharit Manas. It's a wonderful book. But why did Prabhupada say different things at different times to different persons? We have to be able to accommodate that Gurudev is like, he's going to have different relationships with different persons. And what I see in him, maybe I see him as a great administrator or a Christ-like figure. Someone else sees and they have a very intimate relationship with him. I can't imitate that. Is that helpful, Gaunitai Prabhu?
You spoke about the negative qualities, but not about the positive, how the devotee can feel whatever is truly there in the heart of the Guru.
We have to render service. We have to try to understand the mood of our Gurudev. And through that service, Jiva Goswami and Bhakti Sandarbha says that the heart of Gurudev melts, and that becomes our bhakti. So when we render service, Pranipat Pariprashna Sevaya, beginning with Pranipat, submitting ourselves to that person and accepting their chastisement, accepting their guidance, Pariprashna, speaking our heart, asking relevant questions, then we can understand we can really do seva. Seva is not possible until after we've heard. So we want to hear from Gurudev. We want to read your Guru Maharaj's books, see what topics he's writing about, see what's important to his heart, and serve in that way and try to understand and serve. And that'll be revealed then in the heart. The Dami Buddhi Yogam Tam, Krishna promises that'll come to us. Is that better for any type of room?
Yeah, it's more.
Okay. So nice to see you.
Sorry to force you. Sorry,
No, you're not forcing me
because you are
ever.
coughing a lot, so I'm sure that you need some.
It was very, very intense for us in Kazakhstan. The flight, an all-night flight, and no sleep, and then just jumping right into this program. And I was giving sometimes 4 talks a day and just being with so many devotees. And now it's finished. We've just been hiding out here in our very nice place with a nice altar for Giriraj. You can see
Yeah.
over there.
Nice. And how long you stay there?
We don't know. We're trying to figure that out. We're not sure. We may come back to Hungary. We're not sure. Actually, I got some message this morning from India. I didn't tell Krishna Kund yet. She's hearing about this for the first time. That the devotee who's working on her case, that he's looking into it further and it's looking possible.
So you stay with Krishna Kund, that means.
Yeah. She lets me stay with her. Tolerates it as long as I watch them do some things.
Too much separation.
Yeah, I'm staying here with her. And our idea probably is to stay here for at least 2 or 3 weeks, maybe longer. Just because I'm saying about her, but actually both of us, we're not up to traveling very much. It is myself included. I need
Very
to just do more.
Good idea.
Okay. Yeah, that's what happens when we start getting old, right? You're also an old man.
Sure.
Becoming old.
Sure.
You don't want to move around. You just want to stay in one place.
Yeah.
Now we're here in this place, Tashkent. It's a very interesting place. I can't wear a dhoti in public.
Wow.
If I wear a dhoti in public, I may get arrested by the police, and that would be if I'm lucky. That's if Muslim people don't find me and beat the hell out of me first or something.
Cover your head. Cover your head.
I would tilak in public, but even that's a little scary sometimes. But they have a temple here, and they told me I can wear a dhoti to the temple, but he said you can wear it in the car, but you can't walk up the street with it. Okay, they're not going to stop the car and get me arrested for wearing a dhoti. And the devotees here are so nice. My God, there's 10 different families cooking for us. Different families every day bringing prasadam and have this big flat for us, and it's very comfortable and nice for us. It's good. Good thing.
Thank you.
Prabhu. Anybody else with anything? Leela Purushottam Prabhu, what do you think? Is it okay?
I'm very happy to hear that you get such a nice care by devotees and that you feel good there. And yeah, use it for a good rest. And maybe you will have some time for writing also.
Yeah, I've been working on things. I just finally collected on my phone all the bindus, quite a lot of bindus. It took me, but I have a complete collection. I'm thinking to make some zip files and make them available to devotees so they can just download all the bindus in like 2 or 3 files. So there's some good stuff in those magazines, actually.
Yeah. Well, I would have so many things, but I don't want to make it too
We should
long.
share something. It's one thing we want to hear.
Well, I was thinking about Orshi's concern about the intimacy. It's probably the quality of Krishna that amazes me the most is his power of reciprocation. Like he's absolutely unlimited. And if we look at his pastimes with our ordinary vision, then we may judge it like, oh, how can the intimacy can be maintained? But then we have such amazing descriptions by our acharyas. It's just, like one that really amazes me, though it includes Sakya rasa, is that when Krishna, when Krishna goes out, then he doesn't really appreciate Mother Yashoda's opulent decorations, golden everything, and then he lets the cowherd boys to decorate him with the natural pigments and peacock feathers and gunjamala and like this. And then every cowherd boy decorates his own Krishna to his taste, to his liking. And then when they're coming back, then Krishna at one point he merges into one form when he's visible from the Nandagram, to not confuse everyone with many forms. But what's so amazing that every single cowherd boy, when he looks at that point at Krishna, he seems the Krishna as he decorated him. Like that one form of Krishna, and every cowherd boy sees like how he decorated Krishna. This is so amazing.
That's such a nice comment. You made my day. Thank you. What is it, Krishna? Where is it from? She's asking, Krishna.
Oh, that's a long time ago. I've heard it from some kata. I don't have the reference in the literature directly.
But it makes sense.
But another reference that I remember, it's probably either Vrindavan Mahimamrita. Probably it's Vrindavan Mahimamrita by Prabodhananda Saraswati. He says that, "Oh dear sadhaka, don't be in anxiety. There is Rasa Lila going on in every kunja of Raja every night." That was a favorite quote of Indra Prabhu.
You really got the bottom of that book, I think. Oh.
So that's I have a strong faith that this power of or ability of Krishna's reciprocation with his devotees, it's much beyond our imagination. Because for me, it's also scary if I'm to attend a festival where there is more than 100 devotees, it scares me. It's like, and then we hear these numbers, like how many gopis are going to rasa dance, and so it's definitely.
We were commenting recently to someone at Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj. He's told me many times he doesn't like these big festivals. He doesn't take part in them. If you try to invite him for a Bhakti Sangam in Czech, he probably won't come. But I've taken part with him in, I don't know, 5 or 6 different festivals that he's organized with his disciples, but not just his disciples, just senior disciples even, quite often. He likes something very sweet and very thick. And when it's just the same group, it's much, much nicer. So much nicer. But there's some reason to also go to Czech to the Bhakti Sangam Festival. I think that's what some people tell me anyway. There's just some
And we still can consider Bhakti Sangha to be quite small festival. You remember much bigger Bhakti Sanghas in Ukraine and Russia.
This festival just now, Bhakti Janani Festival, how many devotees was it?
450, 500.
4,000?
450, 500.
Oh, there's about 450 devotees, 500 devotees.
See, Bhakti Sangha. Bhakti Sangha now has only some 140 registered. So it's quite okay. Yeah.
And there was
Also,
14,000 this one year.
yeah, these numbers really scares me. Although it must be amazing to be in the kirtan with 14,000 other devotees. But that's probably the only thing. All the rest of the story must be scary.
Something?
What you said, Prabhu,
Can you hear what she's saying?
What you said, Prabhu,
Yeah,
of this description, how Krishna is doing some different pastime in every devotee's heart. Like in someone's heart, he's sucking the breast of Mother Yashoda. In someone else's heart, he's playing with the cowherd boys. In someone else's heart,
That's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's comments.
yes.
Yeah.
And in someone else's, he's with the gopis, like that. And it just reminded me of when you said this, that it's not beyond Krishna to be intimate when he wants to be intimate. He's so intimate that it's just one-on-one.
Yeah, I mean, and when Leela Prasad was saying that, we can't understand how we can be intimate, but we also can't understand the degree of intimacy.
yeah.
We don't know what the word intimate means. We think intimate means I'm going to be with 2 or 3 people and that's intimate. But it's the depth of the sweetness and the exchanges. It's inconceivable for us.
Chamatkar.
Yeah. Chandrika.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I was just thinking because it was a little bit. I can imagine that for many devotees in ISKCON, it might really create anxiety if they are considering by the physical means how close they are able to be with their gurus. So for me, it would really require like much more discussion about how that closeness to guru, what would be the verb, like surpasses those external consideration in one case, and another case that it doesn't have to necessarily be only limited to that Vaishnava who initiated us. We might find that closeness with the Vaishnava who will be more guru for us than just person. I don't know. I don't want to make it sound weird. It's not just, but it might be reality for many devotees, and they have to live with it, that they will never be able to get close physically to their guru.
We're all messed up, I think, sometimes a bit. We're thinking everything in terms of the institution, but it's natural. Sometimes they grow up and due to circumstances, they never meet their father, but their father might be the most influential person in their life. They may hear about the writings of their father, their activities, or things like that. It's not such a cut and dried thing. It's a relationship. And Krishna will always take care. And there's a principle of guru. Prabhupada had very little association with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He wasn't one of the big persons at all. It was inconceivable to his godbrothers, his big sannyasi godbrothers, that this grihastha businessman was going to the West and preaching like he did. My Guru Maharaj had very little association with Prabhupada. When he was going to take sannyas, they were upset. Who is he? He's a new man, they said. Prabhupada said, he's a devotee from birth. You're a new man. So there's a principle of Guru. And if we approach Guru in the right way and we're sincere, the principle of Guru means Krishna. Krishna will reciprocate with us in different ways. Orsi, did you have something else?
I have only a technical question. So if there is no other meaningful question, it's connected to the Bhakti Sangha and the Padayatra.
Okay, it's not a question about Facebook or internet or something like that, WhatsApp or.
No, it's about
Go ahead.
I'm just.
I think you want to ask the person.
Yes, I was just asking Lila Purushottam. So we were just had a conversation, and I need to fix my registration when I would like to be there in the Bhakti Sangha, and I was thinking that the Padayatra is in that time, at least there is some overlap. And how would you plan? Because I would like to stay at the Padayatra until you and go to the Bhakti Sangha after.
We don't have a plan yet. My only comment to you, Orsi, is you should be nice to Leela Purushottam Prabhu. If you're not, when you go to check, instead of a place for you to stay, the police may be waiting for you. He's a dangerous person, so be nice to him. Okay?
This is why I was asking you not to make problem. Okay, thank you.
Ronnie Tai Prabhu, your arm's getting tired. It's up so long. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. There's no sound.
I was remembering then when I read the Bihar Bhagavatamrita, that Guru appears for the disciple for many, many places. And he just don't know how, but when necessary, Guru is present physically and speaks like much more intimate, like we are speaking. So they don't have to have internet. They just appear. We don't know how. And Prabhupada also mentioned that my Guru Maharaj was trying to convince me to take sannyas. What does it mean? It's not just some message from there's a conversation. Just Prabhupada doesn't speak about, but it's a physical, somehow you feel the same.
Or just Guru may be speaking through some person. You may go to the Jalangi and see some local person fishing, and the person says something to you, and you realize, oh my God, my Guru Maharaj is speaking through him to this fisherman. It may happen.
Not really that. You see Guru Maharaj at the bank of the Jalangi somehow at one moment, and then he disappears. I don't know. In the kirtan, he could be. It's transcendental. Or Krishna takes his form anyway.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says that I pray that I can see my Gurudev in every person and every animal and every tree, every stone, every mountain, always, every year, every month, every week, every day, every hour, every second, that I can see Gurudev everywhere. So he may speak to us through so many different ways. And that's the principle of Guru. Okay? So we better stop there. Gauri Sai Prabhu, if you're really nice, maybe Leela Purushottam will let you come to Czech again and take part in the Bhakti Sangam Festival. Is that okay, Leela?
That would be a dream come true. That would be amazing.
Do you have any program in September?
Well, not that official and big as Bhakti Sangha, but if you are around in September, we will be so happy to have you.
I hope
we can arrange some program in that Namahata Center or whatever. That would be nice.
Sure.
Great.
I'm planning that.
Very much. Let's go ahead and stop for the day. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki, Go Premanandi Hari Bo, Vancha Kopadarubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Bhyeva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.